Welcome to Learning Leaders. I'm very excited to have Chris Reichart with us today. He's going to talk about this game that he's developed. It's a really fun game. I've played it, lots of really cool stuff. And he's going to talk about his leadership journey. How do you go from a spark, an idea, all the way to a fantastic game that's been played literally on some of the highest mountains? Chris, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, an overview of the game, and why you decided to create this particular game?
Yeah, sure. And glad to be here and looking forward to sharing my experience because it's been a quite a ride. So kind of been grew up in the IT world. I mean, I was a graduate of Bloomsburg at MSIT, and you were one of my mentors there, and it was really helpful. And it really got me into a world that I never expected to be in. Going from Bloomsburg to Macromedia, and my first job was in Silicon Valley in the early days, in the early '90s. So it was late '90s and early and 2000s. So got to really be part of the revolution in a one of the early learning companies. So understanding that world is where kind of I went from being a kid, which I'm kind of back to being a kid now, and being a ski bum to living a life of curiosity and working in some really um, interesting companies and working some things. And then I think part of that led to what turned into this current venture I'm on, which is creating a game. And it was something that everything I learned early on actually helped me develop a game that was going to be something that people enjoy and people interact. And I think my instructional design life and the world I've lived in has helped me lead to this, but is also was something that what you do in ID, and I know we'll talk about this later, but it really was the idea of trying to make things simple and interactive and get people engaged in whatever you're doing. And I think all the business I've been in, it's been about I only do things I love, and I love seeing people engaged and people solving problems for people and having them have real experiences and spending time on what they need to do, not on the tasks, the paper, and all the other stuff you have to do to get there, just making things easy. So.
Right. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, and I know the game is easy to play. It's lots of fun and has really some interesting elements. You're basically building with rocks, little towers, kind of Jenga-esque, but and then they fall, and then you try to stack them up again on this other little rock, and all kinds of really interesting things. So you can tell us about a little bit about the journey of the game. You entered it into Mensa. What was that like? How did the game, germinate, and then why Mensa? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
all kinds of
Well, it was
interesting
great.
things
And
around
so
that.
sure. I mean, I think one of the cool things, I never made a game. I never thought I'd make a game in my life. It wasn't something. I played a bunch of interesting games, and I saw the engagement of stacking games and these kind of physical games. And there's a lack of that today. It's a very digital world, and trying to bring an analog product into a digital world is interesting. But the response that I've gotten has been amazing. It's really about, this is a really interesting stacking games. There's a gazillion games I have. I don't know, 10 or 12 different stacking games from stones to blocks to those different things. And I think all of them were interesting, but when I started doing this and being out living in Tahoe, I live in Lake Tahoe and Reno area. So I'm out in the mountains and hiking a lot and out in the field a lot. And like the rock formations you see and doing hiking, that's kind of where the name comes from. Talus Tumble. Talus is the unstable rocks at the top of a mountain. So when you're climbing hikes in these higher mountains, the rocks that are just falling down and you never know what you're going to walk on is kind of what led to this name. But it really made me think about the gameplay and how we could build something that was stacking games have been around, and just it's a Karens have been people have been doing that on and next to lakes and everything forever, but to have real gameplay was the key. And I think that's what led to building something, saying, well, this is really cool, people are really engaged with this, but all the games I played didn't quite have the gameplay to really make it truly interactive and have a theme. And I think that's where this game, as you'll see, went into a climbing theme. If you check out our videos and things like that, it's really based off of a climbing. And the packaging itself, I wanted everything to look like a a chalk bag for climbers. So this was kind of like, for a 4-player game, the game comes with 4 players. It comes with a chalk bag. It looks like a chalk bag, and then this carabiner. Everything I've done is high quality. This was MBL 6KN or carabiner, which means it'll hold 1,200 pounds. And so kind of one of the things was looking at a game that would be adapted by the market you're going after. And so that's kind of where how I got started with the game.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you just started like stacking rocks with your friends, or did you like, hey, I want to create a game around stacking? So it kind of was a purposeful intent to do it, correct?
Yeah, so it was really, I mean, the purposeful thing was, here's the game, here's these stacking games, here's this. I really need, they don't have gameplay. So I sat around a table with a bunch of people. We went to a place here, went outside, like 10 people, and just said, hey, let's think about how can this game be interactive and not be, did you want to play it again and again? And
Mm.
and it was really cool. The idea of having hand cut rocks is also something, I want something that you're touching and getting into the physical world and gives you that feel of being outdoors and climbing, and that you don't know what you're going to get into the next when you go to the next peak or on your hikes. You always find something interesting out there. So the same thing with this game. It's like some of the comments I got, and we'll talk a little bit more about Mensa, but it was like around this, like, hey, the edge of the tower wasn't flat, so it fell down right away. But that was on purpose. It's not, doing that kind of thing makes you really interact with each piece and feel what's going to stand and not. I mean, that's part of the game design, is to have every piece is unique in a range, but not, I don't want things perfect. And I think some of the greater comments that I got when people start looking at this and playing with this is it's really primal. And I think that's a great great
Oh
way to
yeah.
describe this, is like primal is just like, and just how great it is just be interacting with rocks, and with stacking them, and with not knowing, with actually having to feel the entire piece all around to figure out how you play it. So
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Yeah, I think about, like when you're kids playing with rocks, skipping rocks, trying to find that perfect rock, feel all the rocks. So let's step back just a second. So tell us a little bit about the gameplay. Like, so what's this game? How do you do it? We've talked about it. You and I
yeah,
have played it, had a great time, played it with friends and relatives. But let's step back a minute and just talk about. So you said 4 players, and you
yep.
each get a little bag of rocks and go from there.
Yeah, so it's 4 player game. Everybody gets 6 unique hand cut rocks. So every game it's 25 hand cut rocks, which is a rock base, and then each player has 6 unique shaped rocks, and they're all based off of the kind of, that's part of the big thing about this. And I do need to go back to the Mensa type of stuff, but the packaging was always one of the big things they got. So a typical bag is, this is one player's games, and so the iterations of things, and this is some of the stuff we'll go into the instructional design part of this, was like helping people. So that if I had the bags, the initial bags didn't have anything on it, just had a name, right? So like, so what rocks go back in the bag and things like that. So now having each rock shown on the bag is also very helpful for them to know what goes into the bag. So every game is, there's these 6 shapes in every bag, and the goal of the game is to be the first person out of rocks. So being from when you run out of rocks that hand, you would count how many rocks everyone else has in their piles, and then the first person to 21 will win the game. I'm really, one of the things early on, I think we'll talk through, of how this became a reality from a idea, was really the people that I've met through the ways and through my networking that led to this. But people love the idea that I really want this to be unique, and almost like, I always think there's people that do think that fight people adding to their game or changing things when they're designed. Like I'm a big believer in the Jeep mode, where there's a bunch of companies that actually build things that go on the Jeep, and Jeep doesn't fight them. They like the community it builds. And I think this is building that same type of a community, because I want people to building games out of their own custom rocks. I'm gonna make the Dice Legend printable, so you can write your own rules and have the rules of the week. So I think that's part of this idea, is that the game comes with these base rules. And being in Nevada, gambling's a big thing. So some people like the gambling version, which is $5 a rock, or I guess you can go down, depends upon what you're willing to spend. But that's it adds to the excitement of how meaningful you are when you play your rocks, and how risky you are if you're going to be paying $5 a rock at the end. So that's just a fun way to play it as well. But putting this together, it was all these iterations of finding the right packaging, the right learning, and growing from learning the packaging and learning what people are saying, and lots of game testing. So this has been 2 years in the making, and it's really just it's out there. It's available on the website, and we're out there now. But it's one of the things I think versus software versus games. The difference to me has been that the MVP is a little bit more risky in a game because you get that first impression. Like people understand the software, hey, it does this, it's going to do these other things. But a game, you can't really don't have that luxury to say it's going to be this is what it's going to be. Like I just need it.
Right.
So I was really careful and specific on putting this game out and when it had the packaging was right and those type of things. So
Yeah.
and I
So you spent a lot of time, yeah, getting the package right. I love the detail, the quality, and it's the little things that matter. And then so you had this game, and then you decided to okay, I mean, go big. It seems like Menza seems like a really
yeah.
big. So why Menza? What was that like? And
Yeah.
how did that work?
No, well, I think I didn't know. I knew Mensa Select. I've seen those games, like you've seen in stores where you have a big seal on it and stuff like that. So I've heard about it. And then a lot of it was timing. And my brother, who's a Princeton guy and, around a lot of Mensons. And so he said, this game would probably go well with the Mensons. And so, getting this in the game, and it actually did drive me a lot. It was kind of having a big part of doing something and building something like this is one, in today's world, you're allowed, you can get 6 dice made. I know you've created a game and it's like you can build these baseline things and get your first prototypes out there and get started quickly now, which used to be really, you need a lot of money to do something. I mean, this has been a bootstrapped operation. I have a business partner who's been great, and he's also been the physical I'm now cut rocks all the time, but he was the guy like somebody had to do it for me to keep me going and say, hey, here's the rocks for you. But when you go into this world, you realize, okay, here's my concept. Like, how can I build the prototype first? And then it was also about the finding a goal to go after, and that's where Mensa came in. So there's like this Mensa thing. April 1st was you had to have the game available this year by April 1st. It's an immense select for people that don't know. It's typically the top new games. They select a small number. I think this year was 45. So I was one of the 45 games selected by the Mensa group. And they have an event this year. It was in Oregon where there's about 400 of them or so come play. They say play games for 3 days. It's 24/7. Some people are up there the whole time. It's a wild. I'd love to attend sometime or just go through, but being selected is an accomplishment actually. I mean, people talk about that and they select some the best game and then recommended games. And so, I mean, and the best thing about this is from me as a game developer, first ever game developer and stuff, is wanting feedback. So I was pushing the whole time. I really just cared about getting feedback and getting this in front of that many people that actually play games and do that and give you that back. So getting selected was a big deal. I found out in maybe December, and then I had to have it available by April. And I was actually kind of you do things and if you do them well, sometimes they come back to bite you because I really didn't want people to know that the website was up. I needed to have it up so they could be bought and there's a link to it. But so I'm kind of going backwards right now and getting my SEO better and those kind of things because it was purposeful that I didn't want to have 100 games and someone can go buy them. So I figured out how I have over 1,000 games available right now. And that's why I've been really quiet until I had a point. And I think these are things that I've learned from talking to mentors and talking to people, but getting into dice and getting that feedback, and that was great. So I think, it was exciting to be in that world. And I actually even called the person that won last year and asked like, hey, how impactful is it if you win this thing? And I was a little bit different than I thought. I thought they'd say, I mean, it was amazing. They said we maybe saw a little spike, but it was really, the value is the feedback and the validation of the game and from the people and how it fits in that market. So
Oh, that's fantastic. And to know that smart people like your game, right? I mean, I always think of, wow, I always try to say, be the dumbest guy in the room. And so if I was in a men's, I would definitely be the dumbest guy in the room. So lots of that. And I'd imagine like very scary to put your game out there into that kind of environment and hope that it does well. And wasn't it recommended though at a top 10 or something
So
you
it
told
was
me
no, well,
recently?
so I've actually just got selected to be in they're doing a release right now, the weekend game. So what I realized, the best feedback I got from this whole thing was that the game, they love the game. They're all told me it's the wrong market, it being the game board game market. This is for, they said people, the aesthetics, I got great reviews on, like, I think I was the best game for aesthetics. This was unique and cool. They loved it. This is a high price game. So the base price right now is $130. And it's kind of one of those things that you had to, like, the scariness is revalidating that I've been really tough about saying that. And the reason I went to that price point was actually, I always want to have a story around things. And I said, 132 is a genius score, and to be in Mensa, you have to be in the top 2%. So genius doesn't guarantee you, but you have to at least be that to be into Mensa. So from my research, 130 is known as the not Q or not quite genius score, and I thought that this would help you get a couple points on your IQ to put you over the top. So it is help to have that in there, but the reality was that this isn't the game for the board game community. It's a community I really don't even personally hang out with. Is the first player games, these things, and they're looking for this complex stuff, and there's not really a party game category. So I really don't know how Jenga would have fared at the Mensa competition. I mean, aesthetics. The great thing feedback I got was a lot of 5 stars on my rules, which I think are still lacking, and I got some good feedback on that. But to go with something at that level and have a game that's kind of it's one of those games you play once and you have it, the rest of you never have to learn it again.
Yeah.
Which is really amazing to see that happen and to get to that. And I do attribute that to the instructional design world that I've lived in, as far as making things. You want something that you learn it, you go through it, and you don't have to go through it again. I mean, you don't have to
Right. Yeah. And speaking of instructional design, how did your knowledge of instructional design impact this game? So, you went through the program a number of years ago at Bloomsburg, now Commonwealth University, instructional design program, and like, how do you see the game design and your design, instructional design, all related to your finished product?
it really went into the rules and the design of that, and actually making it also, gamify. I'm not gamifying a game, but the icons. I think we should show some of the photos and stuff of things, but the icons, the dice, that it's a D12 dice, and the interaction of that is really engaging. And I think engagement is a huge thing, but it's the analyze, define, and implement, and then you've got to keep evaluating. And so, going to these, I've lucky enough to be introduced to someone that was there's a company called Dice Games, DYCE, out of Reno here, and a person gave me a connection to a former VP there that led me to a game player in Minnesota. So this thing's been around. Like, I sent games there. The Mensa, you send 10 games to Mensa, so getting all this feedback and those type of things. It's really what led to, I think, building something from my ID background, really led to understanding how do I make this as simple as possible, but engaging, and also you want to reuse it. So
Right.
replayability is what's pretty powerful. When people start playing this, a lot of people say, well, Jenga, what? Like, this is, you know, when you look back at it, when I look at a Jenga, you see it's the same game over and over again. It's a very repetitious thing. There's not a lot of changes. You can't all of a sudden do blocks vertically, right? You do them always the same way and stack them back up. This game is changing all the time, so it actually you have to keep thinking.
Tangible, and so many times we're playing games on our phones or we're playing digital games, and so this really kind of brings people together, makes you put your phone down and kind of play the game. So when I think about leadership, I think about leaders encouraging people to follow and then get people to voluntarily follow them, and that's kind of, I think, what makes a leader. So how do you get people to buy in and go on that journey with you?
Well, yeah, and I think I think that's always that's the hardest thing to solve, is how to do, like, you're the one that's passionate about something, it's your baby. And so everybody I've talked to said, when I play with you, like, I can sit down in a bar and start playing this at a brewery, and just people start coming around and, what's going on, what is this, and it's like, so how do you redo that? And I think building that tribe, and I've been a big Seth Godin fan, and I mean, with AI and things like that, I've leveraged, like, we're making these games that are meaningful to different communities and building these different tribes. And I thought, like, hey, initially I think there's one tribe and it's the gaming world, but now I'm realizing that's actually not. The van life world is the people that appreciate this game, people that do already appreciate being in nature. And then I think one of the best stories was a friend of mine is a big shot at a big company, and their kid's a big gamer, right? He's in the room every time. They came down for Christmas, and I had the games there, and the kids were playing it. And this kid usually comes down and goes back in his room and plays his video games. And after it, the parents came to me and they're like, Chris, like he played that game for 3 hours with these kids. It's the most he's interacted with these kids since elementary school. And like that's the
Wow.
thing that's just driving me and exciting. And then I think that's where the leadership of saying, um, finding now education is a big place of this. This is like I gave it to my niece who's a school teacher. The kids were so interactive and the pleasure of them stacking rocks and like when they put a triangle on a pentagon and it sticks. There's a picture I just had this kid's just his excitement of doing that. And I think that kind of, in a small way, it opens the doors. People realizing like it's just things aren't black and white. Things aren't, holy cow. And you see rocks and the way they hang, and this does bring nature, I think, into the classroom and into people's lives where, I live in it every day. I'm lucky enough to live in it every day. And but it feels like I take that whenever I take it, people will get that. And this rock climbing idea, most people that play it never rock climb. So they're like,
Right.
it gets a feel, it truly does engage them in that way. It says,
Yeah, so interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, and so like you said before, like you didn't know anything about cutting rocks, and so how'd you learn to cut rock? How do you hook up with these people that like say, oh, Chris, here's how you cut a rock. Oh, here's where you can
yeah.
get rocks. Oh, here I know a pile of rocks.
Well, and that's what I think it was. Yeah, just like I said, my business partner he's a general contractor guy, and he's like, yeah, and I think that's part of the engagement with this game is like when I tell people from so many different walks of life, they're like, wow, that's cool. Like, and so learning how, working with a general contractor, like he's one of those guys that says, hey, what are you doing? Because I'm a computer guy, right? Typically, he's like, yeah, I'm doing man stuff. I'm like, I'm cutting things. I'm building a house. Like I'm doing, like you wouldn't know anything about it. I'm like, well, I'm actually, and that's kind of like I love the thing, and now it's like therapeutic. But seeing how understanding what the base rocks are, what that diamond saws don't cut your fingers when you are there. Like I see you walk up to somebody and they're cutting these rocks and they're slicing their fingers. They don't have gloves on or anything. You're like, what's going on? Like, so to me, it was like now I'm that guy, right? But it's like it was really understanding how do we get the most out of materials, what materials can we use, and it's opened the door to like just repurposing things, and that's the beauty of this thing, and it's what where it led to what I think is growing more and more is this historic versions of these games of saving history and putting rocks that were parts of buildings of bridges. I'm making this is a bridge that was just torn down and coming out of Tahoe. It's the only bridge that comes out of Lake Tahoe across the first bridge that comes out of the lake. And these games, this is forever history. I mean, I maybe have 10 of these games, but I think that's the other part of this thing is that idea of every game is one of one. Every game is one of one, which is a really powerful thing. And so I,
Nice.
the rock cutting thing, it's something that I encourage everyone to do. It's very meditative and it's very satisfying when you're cutting rocks. It's very satisfying. So it becomes an addiction. I also found out the rock hounding community is a whole nother level. So I'm finding these different groups that are inspired and excited about this game because of the way they can interact with these rocks now. Instead of having them on their shelf, they're actually touching them and playing a game with them, something
Oh
physical.
yeah, practical application. Yeah, so fascinating. So you're creating like really interesting versions of the game. Can you tell me a little bit about some of those versions? Because as you said, they're very historical it's a really great way to keep a part of history that otherwise might be lost.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, some of I'm working on quite a few right now. The ones I just did was there's a 1904 Southern Pacific Railroad building that was torn down from the bricks, and they had a free giveaway. So I went over and got the bricks and started making a game. And then a couple of weeks ago, actually, I met with the city councilman and loved the idea. We're actually going to be selling the game um, in the Railroad Museum in Sparks, Nevada, which is going to be Southern Pacific bricks, 1904 bricks. And so that's that version. We have cobblestones for San Francisco. I've already sold to some of the bigger tech companies. Some, these are actual cobblestones. My business partner's grandfather actually owned the dump in San Francisco, so we know These were pulled from the streets of San Francisco in the 1960s. And then I
Wow.
recently got, I guess it's commissioned. I mean, it's kind of funny to hear somebody say, somebody said that the other day, you got commissioned to build 150 games. So this a place that I worked with before called Elwyn, which is the one of the oldest of its kind for people with intellectual disabilities and autism. They're tearing down their administrative buildings. They're actually getting 150 games made from the cobblestones from that building. And that process is just really interesting. And I'm founding a new partner, I think, in the East Coast to help with cutting these. But it's really about repurposing, and a lot of people have repurposing nature. So I talked about the game from the bridge, and I'm working with some realtors now too that are purchasing, getting in Tahoe. It's a great. A lot of people have these as summer homes, so they're building, want to build games from their own home, from their yard here, and take them with them back home. So they have a little part of Tahoe with them wherever they go. So this is really turned into like an amazing way to have a unique gift, number one, but also have a history with you and interact with you, and actually just keep those memories alive and repurpose things instead of having them all go in the trash and get.
Yeah, no, that's really fascinating, and especially the history behind some of those places to be able to. I mean, it's almost like you're interacting with the history, which is kind of interesting. Now, you're also thinking about a version of this game that's more of an educational version. So,
Yeah.
it's a weekend fun game that you can play at the brewery, but bringing it into schools, you might want to cut down on the betting and the drinking. So, how are you making it more educational?
Well, I mean, luckily I'm here in Nevada. I was at a mine the other day, so we have some amazing rocks out here. Everything from, from Wonderstone. This is some Wonderstone here. That's a common, one of the main Nevada rocks, and this is a base that was made from fluorite from the. This is from the Pleiades mine out in Austin, Nevada. So, I think what I've been talking to a lot of geologists that have been playing this game and things like that, and saying like, how can we make this educational, guys? I really think just the interaction of stacking rocks and the physics of it and those type of things is educational, but the geology side of this. So I'm trying to work with a couple of geologists. I'm trying to meet the people here, and UNR has quite a program, and there's other places. But how do we maybe make a game? And I want to collaborate on with folks on that. Maybe there's a card that says this rock is created by volcanic, eruptions that have been cooled and whatever. And so you have to pick that rock from the game set. So teaching at the same time while you're doing it. So I think there's some play there, and it really is geology is there's some really interesting things about, like they say about physicists and chemists get all the love in the science world, but geologists really are so important in today's world. And this, hopefully maybe this will help, create some curiosity in kids in geology and rocks, because it really is an amazing thing. And I can see the addiction of the rock hounding community.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that I mean, people I talk to like, hey, I have a rock game. They pull out like, I have 3 rocks in my pocket. They're like, they have rock games all the time. It's like, it's
That's
crazy.
wild.
But so again,
Yeah.
it's like going into something which is, I think, a part of the leadership, or also the humbleness of knowing to tweak your market and go to the right place. Because I keep thinking, the big thing Mensa kept saying to me was, it's too expensive. It's too expensive. And I kept going back to using AI and other people and talking to people. And they say, no, it's just, the market's there for you. I mean, my inspiration, maybe someday this will be an REI or a Patagonia type of game, because that's the people that appreciate this. And then it'll go to, I think, go to every market. Everyone loves this game, but it's one of those things that you have to understand why I'm making that. And I think scarcity also creates, a little bit of addiction, or helps lead the process to sales. So we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting. And also, the game has literally summited mountains.
Yeah, so
So,
it's
can you
been
tell me about that's kind of
well, so,
interesting.
yeah. Well, I think one of the things, just this climbing theme and looking at this, I mean, it's gone to some great people that I don't know, highlining, where you put a rope across 2 mountains and you tightrope it. I mean, there's the communities out here are wild, but seeing them people playing that game, it's been the Kilimanjaro up to almost 16,000 feet.
Wow.
And all around Tahoe. I'm trying to take it to every peak in Tahoe, and my goal at some point is to have this be the only game that's ever been to all the 7 highest peaks at some point. I mean, I think it really does resonate with the climbing community, and so I think that's it's another channel, and it's really cool to see something that expands beyond being like I look at many businesses when I just walk by, just my own site. I look, you go to a strip mall, and you think of how limited their community is that they're going to sell to, right? And I just feel blessed and excited to what this could be because it feel like I'm finding a new community all the time. I spoke to the head of alumni relations at multiple universities now, trying to figure out licensing potentially to say, hey, if you want a stadium's getting redone or whatever, this is like a way for you to help resonate revenue, but also meaningful gifts because people are okay with hats and a sweatshirt, but this has a lot more sentimental meaning, I think, to alumnus and people like that. So it's exciting to see where that's going to go for this thing. And
Yeah, that's great. I mean, so many things nowadays are generic, and to
mhm,
have, like you said, a unique, one of a kind that you have a connection to, I think is really interesting. Like the streets of San Francisco, or my son lives in Colorado. They have a set of rocks from Colorado, and play that game, and all that kind of stuff. So it's really cool. And the other question I have is lots of people tell me they want to build a game, or they want to write a book, or they want to do something creative. And I'm like, great, go ahead and do it, and never materialize. So
mhm.
how did you, break through that barrier of, yeah, I have this vision. Now, how do you make it a reality?
No, it's great, and it's and I've been guilty of this more than anybody. I mean, I have so many people saying, "Oh my God, you have so many ideas," and like you finally did one, and it's like this was really one of those things that one of the times allow you to do something like this. Like I said, I can get 10 dice made and this thing and try it out and do those things, but it's really I think I listened to a podcast, the board game. It's a board game podcast. Board game. I'll give it to you later, but there's a person that I listened to one time. I listened to a lot of podcasts, but this was like 100 games. Like he said, made a goal and did 100. Like don't over, but do enough that you can get a real feedback and do enough. So, so once I had that goal in my head, it was really 100 games to start with. And I'm glad I did because, this is the third iteration of the bag or fourth iteration of the bag. I mean, it's costly to do it wrong and to do, so that MVP thing, when I always talk about that from my software world, is like that was only shared with the people that are my trusted advisors and these people that want to game test and say, this is great. Maybe, from a 6-player game, it should be a 4-player game, or maybe you should have this many rocks, or this is going to be too heavy to ship. Like all those things you've learned, but it was really the commitment. Like I'm going to have 100 games by X, no matter what I'm going to do, and that really is what drove me, I think, and also the realization once you're in this Alibaba world and some of these other places that let you make stuff, you don't need to do 1,000 versions of everything today's world. You can do 100 pretty much if you find the right people that will do 100 for you, and that's also the it validates it for you too if you get people to build things for you for this custom thing. Because a custom dry bag that this size, a really small one, is hard to find, and then to move you're moving where the zip where it connects, and so all those things are like iterations for this and making sure you decide. So I think anybody wants to do it, it's just saying whether it's 10 games or 2 games, start with getting the game done once at one level. Don't think you have to mass produce it, and then really listen to feedback. And there's resources out there. I mean, people really do. And my favorite quote I've always lived by is, if you want money, ask for help. If you want help, ask for money. And I always ask for help. I never ask for money. And it's like, but people appreciate it, and they also do know if you're sincere or not. So it's like, if you like, I don't take credit away from anybody that gives me valuable feedback and stuff. And I always want to I don't share it as my own. I share it as like, this person helped me here and this person helped me there. So
No,
the
that's
gameplay,
fantastic.
especially that was like, I needed a community that knew climbing and knew things that was going to resonate with that world. So, I wouldn't have come up with the rules we had if it wasn't for the group that we all got together with and we all talked through it. And they're like, I came up with that rule, but you're the one that made the game, it's like, that's the thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Like having that goal, and then not being afraid of failure, and to learn, fail forward fast kind of concept. I think Yeah, it makes a lot of sense and really, shows off in the details and the enjoyment of the game. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I could talk to you all day. Unfortunately, we're running out of time here. So, any, words of wisdom, or maybe I could ask leadership gems, since we're talking rocks and games like that you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, well, I guess I mean, I don't know. My biggest thing is your networking is everything. I mean, it really is. And being like as you know, I'm not an introvert by any means, but it's also having that network of you never know what if you don't ask people, like just because they're focused on one thing, they might be the connection for something else. So a person I've known from, he was a big audio video guy, and just talking to him about what I'm doing and staying in connection with these people. And then there's like, oh my God, I want to introduce this person. And that's like, and that led to really how I got to this game to be where it is. If I didn't have those connections, I'd still be, you can't do this on your own, and you can't enter a market that you've never been in without finding leaders in that market that want to help you. And so I think that's my biggest thing would be that just continue your networking and don't ever let your network go. I talked to 5 people yesterday that I haven't talked to in 10 years, but that's having a network like that is really what what I think I attribute almost everything I do towards. Like I don't do anything out of on my own without using my network. So
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, so I recommend everyone, again, go grab. We'll put the website up. Go grab a copy of this game right in time for Christmas. Lots of fun, lots of really, like hours of excitement. Literally, like, had a great time playing it. So,
I'm gonna give a code to put with the game when you put up there for off for Christmas, like a 20% off for Christmas. So we'll do that for you too. So thank
oh,
you.
fantastic! Yeah, so everybody who stayed till the end got this great code.